Hare Krishna. A heartiest welcome to everyone in our second Alumni Sanga. Thank you for joining. We heartily welcome everyone, and we are extremely honored and grateful to have with us His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami Maharaj. So let us all welcome Maharaj. Just a brief introduction of Maharaj before beginning. Maharaj is disciple of ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj has been a teacher, a writer, a traveler. Maharaj has been serving Vaishnav community since his initiation in 1972. Maharaj has been serving as a Diksha Guru also, even since his brahmachari days. How many brahmacharis you know who play this role? But Maharaj has been a Diksha Guru since as a brahmachari as well. Maharaj has served as a pujari. He has been a counselor, especially in relation to bhakti yoga practitioners. 1972 to 1976, Maharaj was based in Germany, Netherlands, and Denmark. And later, Maharaj expanded his services to Central Europe. And between 1978 to 1995 and up until now, Maharaj regularly visits India on pilgrimage, especially in relation to deity worship. Maharaj's contribution has been very, very valuable. In 1995, Maharaj was a member of a research group who compiled and published Pancharatra Pradeep, which comes in two volumes, a manual on Chaitanya Vaishnav temple worship. Maharaj himself has served as ISKCON's GBC Minister for Deity Worship from 1995 to 2005. Maharaj is an accomplished academician. In 2004, Maharaj earned his PhD from the University of Oxford for his research on Chaitanya Vaishnav image worship. Maharaj's dissertation was later published as Attending Krishna's Image, Chaitanya Vaishnav Murti as Devotional Truth by Routledge Hindu Studies series. Many of Maharaj books you'll find they are also available in Mayapur Academy Library. Whenever you come to Mayapur, please visit our Mayapur Academy Library. You'll find many of the Maharaj books there as well. Maharaj is a research fellow at Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. I was fortunate to be a participant in a newly launched program on Bhagavad Puran and a course on Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which Maharaj teaches there. Maharaj is also a faculty member at Bhaktivedanta College, Radhadesh since 2002. Maharaj has taught on Indian and Asian religions at the University of Florida. And since 2007, Maharaj has been regularly teaching Indian religion and culture at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, later giving lectures at universities in Public Republic of China. So Maharaj is an accomplished academician, and he has been traveling extensively. I won't list the name of all the countries. There are more than 40 countries Maharaj has traveled and regularly travels and shares Krishna consciousness. So we are very, very glad to have the association of Maharaj. Without taking much more time, let us all welcome Maharaj and begin this session. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Premanjana Prabhu, thank you for your kind introduction and thank you for inviting me to join you all in this gathering. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to be with you all. I have to say that somehow or other, I keep getting reconnected to the culture, the practice of deity worship in our society, despite myself. And it makes me think, well, okay, Krishna wants me to serve the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis in this way, so I try to do my little part. If I could share my screen, I have some slides to show. Will that be possible?
Yes, Maharaj, you must be having option of share screen. You are a co-host.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Here we go. And I hope you can see this.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So oops, one moment. Huh. Okay. I just have to adjust something on my screen. It's putting, okay. So I've given this title to my little presentation. Excuse me. Surveying the Archana Field from all angles of vision. I'm taking this phrase, all angles of vision, from a little bit out of context. Srila Prabhupada would speak in speaking about reading and studying and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes he would say we should discuss the Bhagavatam from all angles of vision. And I've always been kind of struck by that phrase. And now I want to sort of transfer it onto the subject of Archana, of deity worship. I hope that you will all tolerate my experiment. What I want to do specifically is to present an assortment of books which I think could be interesting for all of you. And I think first, though, I need to a little bit justify doing this, because one could, of course, say, well, what you're showing us is it's not part of our scriptural canon, although the first book is. It's not, we study Srila Prabhupada's books, and we study his lectures and conversations and so on. And that mood of wanting to keep focused on Srila Prabhupada's teachings is certainly justified. Having acknowledged this, my personal experience is over the years that I've found it helpful to become aware of, you could say the wider landscape of deity worship. I think one way to put this is to say that we cannot exist in a vacuum, neither in terms of space or time. In other words, there is a history, just as there is a history to our tradition, the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, going back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And some scholars would say, well, it actually goes back earlier. And yes, we can say, yes, it goes back to Srila Vyasadeva and so on. We don't exist in a vacuum of history. And that means we are, whether we like it or not, interacting with the world around us in so many ways. And so also in terms of space, everywhere that each of you, pujaris, who I wanted to say are the pujaris and cooks in our movement, I feel that you are the unsung heroes of the Krishna consciousness movement, people talk about so many things about our movement, but they rarely appreciate what the pujaris and the cooks are doing every day, day in and day out. But I want to say that we don't exist in a bubble. And what I want to do here is just give you a little exposure to some, what I found to be very well written, very well researched books on topics which are related to Archana or about certain temples. And you may find sometime that you want to explore some of this. Okay, with that said, first I want to introduce a book by a good friend of mine, Brigupad Das, otherwise known as Dr. Måns Bro. He's in Finland. I would imagine that all of you here on this call are more or less familiar with the Hari Bhakti Vilasa of Srila Sanatana Goswami. Perhaps you have read translations. And what I want to call attention to here is that this is a very carefully done, not just a translation of the Mula, the original text, plus the commentary. It is what is called a critical edition. I won't go into detail what that means, but it's a very painstaking process of comparing manuscripts, because the manuscripts for Sanskrit literature tend to have variations. In this case, Mrigupad Prabhu was able to collect, I believe, over 100 different manuscripts. Aside from printed editions, these are manuscripts. And he compared them and he narrowed down to, I think, 13 manuscripts. And this book records all the little differences, sometimes possibly bigger differences. What you see here is volume 1. This is a projected 4-volume publication. Volume 1 includes the first 5 chapters of the altogether 20 chapters of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And what is especially interesting, in addition to the text itself, and he's a very accomplished Sanskritist, so it's very well done. Some translations in English you'll find are a translation from a Bengali translation from the Sanskrit, and the Bengali is sometimes simply mistaken. It's simply wrong. So he's taking the original, but what I wanted to say is that he has an introduction which is, as I remember, about 100 pages long, going into great detail about so many different aspects of the work. And one interesting point I found was that Brigupada Prabhu was able to establish what Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur always said, which is that the Hari Bhakti Vilasa's author is Sanatana Goswami, not Gopal Bhatta Goswami, as the Radharaman Goswamis will tell you, the Radharaman priests. He's found definitive proof of that. Now, also about this book, it is published open access. And this means that you can download the book completely free of charge and completely legally from the publisher. The publisher is called Brill, Brill. You can go to their website and search. The link I'm giving takes you directly to the book. Otherwise, you search the title, Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Okay, that's the first book I want to mention. And the next one, Communication with God, the daily puja ceremony in the Jagannath temple. This is a very detailed study, a translation of more than one text, which are used in the Jagannath temple in Puri. And of course, we need to be aware that their process of worship is not our process. And this story goes that Ramanujacharya visited Puri and wanted to reform the worship, and was, so to say, literally thrown out of Puri in the night as he was sleeping, and he ended up in Kurukshetra, I believe. Still, I don't know. I found this book extremely fascinating to know just what they actually do in the temple. This is the daily puja, and Gai Charan Tripati is a very, how to say it, I've met him personally, a very fine gentleman. He spent some time at our center in Oxford some years ago. So I'm going to sort of jump through these quickly, excuse me, and then we'll see if you have some questions. We can perhaps expand on something. Okay, the late Dennis Hudson, Dr. or Professor Dennis Hudson, spent approximately 25 years studying this one temple. He became fascinated by this particular temple. The book's title, The Body of God, an Emperor's Palace for Krishna in 8th century Kanchipuram. This temple still stands. And what's interesting about this temple is that it has, or it had, bas relief sculptures, many sculptures, which are illustrations of the pastimes, the Leelas described in the Bhagavatam. And Hudson goes into great detail to elaborate how the positions of each of these images in the temple is meaningful. And what may be also interesting for you is that he shows how this all ties in with practices and principles of Pancharatra. This temple was built in the 8th century of the Common Era, as I remember. And he has definite dates for when it was built. And by that, he establishes also that the claims, or we might want to say speculations, that the Bhagavatam did not exist until after Ramanujacharya, only because he did not comment, he wrote no commentary on the Bhagavatam. Dennis Hudson demonstrates that we have to accept that the Bhagavatam is at least from, I think he says the 6th century, because one allows some 200 years for a book to be established. Okay, you will say, wait, no, the Bhagavatam is 5,000 years old. That's all right, but in terms of contemporary Indological scholarship, this is a matter of debate. But for pujaris, I think it's interesting, especially because of what he has to say about Pancharatra. So then moving from Puri to Bengal, you may all be familiar with the story of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, and Shyamananda bringing the books of the Goswamis to Bengal. And before they reached their destination, the books were stolen. And there's an elaborate story about how they were found, recovered by Srinivasacharya, and recovering the books, he also converted Rajbir Hambir, who had, he was behind the theft of the books. His conversion led to the king becoming apparently a very dedicated devotee of Krishna, in fact, of Radha Krishna. And he had temples built in this area. Vanavishnupur is a town in present-day southwest Bengal, the southern part of West Bengal. I visited there some years back. Very interesting style of temples. You see one in the picture here. But all these temples, and over the decades and maybe centuries, many temples were built specifically dedicated to Radha Krishna. So this is, we don't usually hear about temples in Bengal. And so I think this is interesting and relevant on the historical side. And you can visit, again, in Vanavishnupur. We had a tour there. Unfortunately, our tour guide didn't really know very much. Now, moving to Vrindavan. Some years ago, when I started my research, part of my research for my dissertation, doctoral dissertation, was on the Radharaman temple. Because I'll come back to this, but I came to know of this scholar, Margaret Case, and her book, Seeing Krishna, The Religious World of a Brahmin Family in Vrindavan. And I read the book, I found it very fascinating because she spent a lot of time, she became a close family friend of Purushottam Goswami and his family, the late Purushottam Goswami, and Shivatsa Goswami is one of Purushottam's sons. Shivatsa Goswami I've come to know and have befriended as I was doing research on the temple. So this is an interesting book because it really gives you a kind of inside look into you could say, Brahminical culture as it's practiced in a Krishna temple community today. For us, it may be somewhat theoretical in some ways. Now, we might say, well, we're not so interested in these people because these are caste Brahmins, these are Jati Gosai. This is one of the Apasampradayas that Bhaktivinoda Thakur rejects, 13 sampradayas. Yes and no. What I would say from my experience engaging with some of these Goswamis is they're very devoted, the ones that I got to know, sincerely devoted to Krishna. And I think we need to also appreciate that they've been maintaining over the centuries, over generations. The Radharman temple in particular has been going for, 400 and whatever it is now, 460 or 80 years. I don't remember now. So that's one book I thought to share. A much more recently published book is David Haberman's Loving Stones, Making the Impossible Possible in the Worship of Mount Govardhan. David Haberman is a follower of the Vallabh Sampradaya, and he's a professor of religion at, I think, University of Indiana. And he's, how to say, a very, I would say, very devotional person. He's written several books. This is his latest. One of his earlier books was about parikrama in Braja, the Raj Mandala Parikrama, which he took part in, and he describes it. Another book on the Yamuna River and its pollution, or apparent pollution, as he elaborates. Another book about the worship of trees in India. And this one, Loving Stones, is about Govardhan. And what he does, he talks with people, he interviews, he asks questions of people who do the worship, who practice, people who live there or people who visit. And so it's what it would be called ethnographic ethnology. He's not just reading books, he's talking with people and drawing out, you could say, their experience, how they understand what it is they're doing in worshiping Govardhan, and so on. And he's a devotee, and therefore, unlike some scholars of religion who we might say are religion bashers, quite the opposite. He wants to show how Krishna worship in particular is a wonderful thing, and he wants to make it accessible to a wider readership. Now, this book, well, first I should confess I haven't read it yet. It's Julius Lipner. I believe he's retired now. He was professor at Cambridge University, and he was the doctoral supervisor of the late Tamal Krishna Goswami. Hindu Images and Their Worship with Special Reference to Vaishnavism, a Philosophical Theological Inquiry. So this is, philosophical and theological. So it's one has to expect some dense reading. He is himself a theologian, philosophical theologian, you can say, but he has studied extensively this tradition from this philosophical theological perspective. And I dare say that he appreciated my book, which I'll show you in a minute, on the subject of worshiping Krishna. But I haven't read it yet. Okay, this is my own, this was a product of my research I mentioned before. Part of the study was of the Radharaman temple. I had heard so many years ago that Srila Prabhupada had instructed Yamuna Devi and also Narottam Prabhu to study the worship at the Radharaman temple. Actually, he mentioned 3 temples: Radharaman, Keshavji Gaudiya Math in Mathura, and the Govindaji temple in Jaipur. And I had met one of the Goswamis of the Radharaman temple many years back, and he was, he impressed me as a very cultured person, very learned in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on. And this inspired me to get to learn something more about their tradition. That particular priest very sadly died quite suddenly, but peacefully, several years ago. But his sons are there, and I've had some friendly relation with him. Anyway, attending Krishna's image, Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva, as devotional truth. Now, this is, what do I mean, devotional truth? Well, I could do a whole discussion on that, but to make it short, I did a comparative study in this book between the Radharaman temple and the Radha Gokulananda temple of ISKCON outside of London. So one temple in Vrindavan that's 450 years old or so, and one temple in London, which is, I think now it's around 50 years. Both of them Gaudiya Vaishnava temples, but in very different circumstances. So the question for me was how to make a comparison. And I was very much helped by a comparative religions project that was done in America 25 years ago. And they wrote 3 books. There were 20 scholars involved, called the Comparative Religious Ideas Project. And I drew from that project some ideas, and some of their ideas I kind of turned upside down in order to make my my presentation. Okay, I think that's all that I will say on that for now. If you want to come back to it, we can. Again, another book that I wrote, this was a very different style of book. I was asked by His Holiness Devamrita Swami, just maybe it was a year before COVID hit the world. He asked me to write a book to explain deity worship to a wider public. So I thought about it, and then came COVID, and I was in a lockdown situation, and I thought, okay, it's time to write that book. And this is the result: Krishna's Wonderful Form, a Guide for the Perplexed. It's the subtitle is comes from Moses Maimonides, a Jewish philosopher of the Middle Ages. And this is in the form of conversations. I invented three young people who are open-minded and curious and interested in Krishna consciousness in general, and they're asking the Swami, in this case, a certain Krishna Kshetra Swami, various questions, and he's replying. So this was kind of fun. It's a paperback book. I don't know where all it's available other than Bhaktivedanta Library Services in Belgium. I don't think it's available in India, although it was published in India. It was, or I should say, printed in India. It was published by the BBT Australia. So that's, I think, yes. And then I just have a short list of a few more. Perhaps some of you are familiar already with the two wonderful volumes, Yamuna Devi, A Life of Unalloyed Devotion. And perhaps you're also familiar with the third volume that Dina Tarini has written, namely The Study of Seva Puja, which is basically Yamuna Devi's notebooks from the research that she did following Srila Prabhupada's instructions to study these other temples. There are many photos in all three volumes, but all of them are a wonderful documentation of just how dedicated Yamuna Devi was in her worship of Krishna, Radha, Krishna, and deities in general, but especially her own deities, and the struggles that she went through as a devotee. You may also be familiar with Giriraj Swami's book, I'll Build You a Temple, which goes into all detail about the challenges that Srila Prabhupada and his followers and disciples struggled with to establish the Juhu temple. I think it's a wonderful way to appreciate Juhu temple, just to visit ISKCON Juhu and see this incredible edifice and complex that's there now, to know what was there in the beginning and how everything went from zero up to what it is now. I mention also this biography, Aindra, Kirtan Revolution by Kalachandji Prabhu, because Aindra, he's known, of course, for his total dedication to Kirtan in the Krishna Balaram Mandir over so many years. But he was also extremely dedicated to deity worship. I visited him a couple of times in his room in the Gurukul at Krishna Balaram Mandir, and you entered. When you came in, it was was a different world with I don't know how many Shalagram Shilas and his Gaurnitai deities. Kalachandji is the younger, I think it's okay to mention, he's the younger brother of Tamal Krishna Goswami. And he is now retired, but he was a professor of English at a university in central USA. And he was helping Indra to write Indra's book. He was editing his book. So he spent a lot of time in the last, I don't know how long, months or year, with Indra and got to know him very well. And because he's himself, Kalachandi, is a writer, it's just a very excellent biography, very, very moving biography of Indra. Okay, then I'm watching the clock and I want to keep time for questions. Very quickly, 4 books. If you are into Shalagram worship, you might want to get this book that's fairly recently published, Shalagram Pilgrimage in the Nepal Himalayas by Holly Walters. This is also an ethnography. Her research took her to Nepal and other places, interviewing, getting to know the people, the local people. What is their understanding? What is the understanding of pilgrims who come to find Shalagram Shilas and so on? The next, with this humorous title, The Cow in the Elevator, An Anthropology of Wonder, by Tulsi Srinivas. She is the daughter of a famous Indian sociologist. I forget his first name, but she is an anthropologist, and her interest is on the whole notion of wonder, adbhuta rasa, if you like. And she focused on 2 temples in Bangalore, as it's now known. One was a Ganesh temple, and the other, was it a Krishna temple? I don't remember now. And this title, The Cow in the Elevator, refers to something that happened. Someone had purchased an apartment on the top floor of a new apartment building in Bangalore, and wanted priests to come and do griha pravesha. And so the priests from this temple, they came and they brought a cow with them, and they got the cow in the elevator and they took her up and had her walk around in the apartment. So Tulsi Srinivas is talking about ritual innovation in particular, how priests don't necessarily keep to the book. They may innovate for various reasons. The next book, Hinduism in Middle India, Narasimha, the Lord of the Middle, I have not read, but the title attracted me, and I'm sure it's very well researched. It's specifically about the worship of Narasimha in central India. I don't know if she deals with, I think, Andhra Pradesh and also Madhya Pradesh. And I think this is my last one, Gods of Flesh, Gods of Stone, the Embodiment of Divinity in India. This is a collection of articles. This book is at least, 30 years old now, but very interesting articles about some very different kinds of practices going on, including some you may find too far out situation descriptions of a person becoming, you could say, ritually possessed by a deity, something which in a particular tradition is performed, I think, once a year as part of a festival. All sorts of different ways of, some of them we may say, well, that's very tamasic or that's very rajasic or whatever. But I think, there's, it's just good to be aware of all sorts of practices going on in India. One, speaking of innovations, I remember years ago visiting one Rama temple in South India. And I was there with one or two other devotees and having darshan. And suddenly there was an explosion in the courtyard. Boom! Okay. And then a little bit later, again, boom, boom. So what's going on? So I went out and I found in this particular temple, this is their tradition. How do you, this is one way to serve the deity. I think it was clever pujaris who wanted to do some fundraising for their deities. So their idea was just for 2 rupees, you can have this explosion. 1 explosion, 2 rupees. 10 rupees, 5 explosions. And this is very pleasing to Lord Ram. This is a service. And no doubt they had some story about how this came about, but I was not speaking the language, so I couldn't inquire. Okay, this is my little presentation with the theme of From All Angles of Vision. And now I want to stop and see if you have anything to add or any questions.
So anyone who has any questions or you want to comment or inquire anything, you can either write in the chat or unmute yourself and speak directly.
Everyone is stunned into silence.
Maybe we would really appreciate if you can, for time being last 5-10 minutes, if you can switch on your videos.
Yes, we like to see faces. Perhaps you want to mention some book which I did not mention, which you appreciate, that's related to our subject.
There is one message in the chat section by Iskon Tenali. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Pamo, can you explain the procedure for installing and worshipping home deities if it is relevant for this discussion?
Oh dear.
uh,
Okay, so to link this in to what we presented, because I presented this first volume of translation, a new translation of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. I think it's interesting to note that, and I don't remember which chapter it's in of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, but in one chapter there is a very, very short mention of home worship. It goes for like 1 or 2 pages out of 20 chapters. And as I remember, basically what it's saying is, whatever you do it nicely, do it regularly, and think and consider that Krishna is an honored guest in your home, in contrast to Krishna in the temple, who is the king. In the temple, there's honoring of the king, and the king has demands. He can say there must be this and this at this and this time. But the honored guest feels him or herself as a guest, and therefore is not making demands. At the same time, the hosts want to please, and they want the guest to be pleased, so they are very eager to do everything to please the guest. But the guest is not demanding anything. And so the householder, having so many duties for maintaining the household, may have a schedule which is flexible. They may have various responsibilities that mean that they cannot have everything going on like in a temple, and that's okay. Srila Prabhupada, of course, said one is making one's home into a temple. So to the question of installation, I don't know of any textual reference for this, but what I suggest to devotees when it comes up, step number one, get the blessings of your guru. Preferably have your guru, invite your guru to be present and to be the presiding priest. If that's not possible, in any case, have the blessings of the guru and make it a small festival. Invite friends. Of course, you can have a fire yagya, although that's, I believe, not essential. Let there be kirtan, let there be an abhishek with the kirtan, and then dressing of the deities, and then worship, offering of a nice feast, and distribution of the feast, and if possible, some pravachan, some speaking, and I recommend writing out a standard, which is sort of like a declaration, because you're inviting Krishna to come. This is a kind of informal installation. You're inviting Krishna in an informal way, but you're inviting him. So many times we hear devotees say, well, my devotees, my deities are uninstalled. Well, then the question is Krishna present or is Krishna not present? If Krishna is not present, what are you doing? So we may just in an informal way invite Krishna, and we want him to stay. And how can we keep him to stay there? One thing we can do is to write out what is our plan, what is going to be our standard. And perhaps before doing that, consult with the temple pujaris, and I think maybe that's where your question is coming from. You're perhaps a pujari in the temple, and some congregation members come to you and they say, we want to install, what should we do? You can have a consultation to make a plan. What exactly their standard is going to be, what they're going to offer, how many offerings a day, maybe a special worship once a week, because during the week they, all they can do is offer their boga, whatever, and then have that written and make that like sort of contract, Yes, Krishna, we're committing ourselves to this. I always say put a date on it and make this the beginning of an historical record of the deity, which then would be passed on to the next generation, because, the idea is when we install a deity, it should be understood this is going to be for good, ongoing worship. Is that okay? Does that answer?
Thank you, Maharaj.
your-
Thank you.
Everyone is stunned. Premanjana, you must have a question. You're muted.
Sorry. So one participant has inquired,
Oh,
how can one get access to the books that you have mentioned in your presentation? Are these books in India or available online? Or can we purchase them? Great.
the first one I mentioned is available online as in digital form. The others, I don't know whether anything is available digitally. And I must admit, some of these books are too expensive for anyone other than libraries. But I would suggest maybe the ministry could purchase the books and have them in their library. Whether they're available in India, you'd also have to see. Now you have Amazon India, so it's quite possible that many, if not all, of the books are available there. And I mentioned my own book, Krishna's Wonderful Form, this paperback, is, to my knowledge, not available yet in India. I think, with a bit of requests coming to the BBT, it might be possible to get copies. I don't know how that works. I'm just the author. Maybe from us, yeah. They were printed in Bombay, but I don't know if any copies are in Bombay, Mumbai. My book, the other book, Attending Krishna's Image, Chaitanya Vaishnava Murti Seva as Devotional Truth, I was frankly quite unhappy. It was published by this academic publisher, Routledge. And their business model is they sell to university libraries, and that means they charge well over £100 for one book, £150 sometimes. So who's going to buy such a book? Eventually, I was able to get the rights back from the publisher to publish in paperback. And so what we did, we created what's called an imprint with the Swedish BBT called Recensia Press. And we printed, what was it, 500 or 1,000 copies, paperback. And those books are available at Bhaktivedanta Library Services Belgium for, I think they're charging 20 euros for one copy, which is, I don't know, it's a lot better than 150 euros or pounds. Oh, and I should mention also, yeah, speaking of India, there's a third book, which was my master's thesis, called Krishna Seva. And this book has been published, republished in India by Dev Publishers, DEV. This is apparently a large publisher in Delhi, and they've been extremely open to publish books by devotees, and they're very fast. Anyway, so that's available. It's just called Krishna Seva. I forget what my subtitle was, but I was basically explaining Gaudiya Vaishnava theology through the lens of deity worship. So that book's available now in India. And other books are being published by them. They're also going to be, this is a little off topic, I wrote a book called Cow Care in Hindu Animal Ethics. It's an academic book published by another publisher. It's open access. It's being translated into Hindi, and that's going to be published by Dev Publishers. Yeah.
Okay, so with that note, Maharaj, with your permission, we can conclude the session.
Yes.
I
I
think
hope I was somehow bringing something, of interest for you. I hope it wasn't too far off base, so to say.
and definitely, Maharaj, and I believe that the session certainly inspires listeners, um, specifically in svadhyaya, one of the most important and
Yes,
often neglected part of deity worship.
yes.
Studying is also a part of deity worship. Yeah. And what more auspicious day than on the appearance day of Gopala Bhatt Goswami and disappearance
Yes,
day of Ramchandra Kaviraj. Yeah.
yes. I want to mention also, not to just be promoting myself, but I did write this book, Attending Krishna's Image, with the hope that more devotees, that not only, others, but that devotees would read it, because I think it helps to think more deeply about our tradition of deity worship. This is why I got into doing this research, is from the first day, I was seeing the deity worship in our temples. I was fascinated. Eventually, I became a pujari. But so many things made me wonder, where does this come from? Why is this, And so eventually this is what it led to. And I think there's some things in that book that you may find helpful just for getting a sort of, I don't know, a richer appreciation of our tradition, I hope.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Maharaj. His Grace Narsingh Kavach Prabhu has sent his apologies for not being able to attend this session. He was very much hoping to. He got a meeting, important meeting, which he could not avoid. So he was sending his apologies. I think we'll conclude here. So let us all thank Maharaj by maybe one time chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, mute or unmute, and we really hope to get more of your association in future as well, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much.
My thanks to you. Thanks to
The,
you all.
the
God
recording of
bless
this,
in
yeah.
your services.
The recording of this session will be available on our YouTube channel within this coming week. You can, if I share that recording, you can watch this session again. And next session, third Alumni Mayapur Academy Sangha will be in March end. And in case if you're coming to Gaur Purnima to Mayapur, please visit ISKCON Mayapur Academy. That's in Chaitanya Bhavan. Many of the participants are who have done online courses. Would like to see you in person as well. Do visit Mayapur Academy. There are short-term courses happening on during Gaur Purnima time also. You can explore them and recommend those to your friends. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Wish you all the best for your services and your to your deities. Hare Krishna.